What's going on? How y'all doing? This video gonna be about Bernard Purdie, legendary drummer. And he came out and said he was one of the four drummers on those Beatles albums back in the 60s that was ghost drumming. Um, Quincy Jones came out some years ago and said the Beatles were some of the most overrated musicians he ever heard. And so Purdie said he was actually playing on drums on 21 of the Beatles songs. That Ringo Starr was a fraud. Said the albums were shipped to America, the Beatles albums, and fixed up by him and others. Now, Bernard Purdie also said that 98% of the self-contained groups in the 60s and 70s are now on their own album. Said his life was threatened. And if he told, it was just a job. He said Ringo was basically not on the album at all. He was handpicked by their former manager, Brian Epstein, and it was about control. So they put a lot of money behind the Beatles, and it's never been done before in the industry, and there's a large amount of money. So Quincy Jones had came out and said this. Now, how do I feel about it? The Beatles, Lennon and McCartney, are two of the greatest songwriters ever. Unless that's ever proven that they had ghosts with the pen game, I'm going to give them that, because I always do. And they are the cornerstone of popular music with those songs. However, if we're talking about, if you give me words, I'll give you that. We talk music. I never felt they music like that. George Martin, their producer, did wonders for them. I'll give you an example. Maurice White, the late great Maurice White, leader of Earth, Wind & Fire, won an arrangement award for "Gotta Get You Into My Life," which was a Beatles classic. You listen to the song, Maurice tightened up the horns, the intro. That's why he won an arrangement for it. Because the Beatles version was like all over the place. The bass was here, the horns were there, John Lennon's voice. And it just sounded discombobulated. Now, Paul McCartney gets respect as a bass player. I'll give you that. And Lennon was all right on keyboards. But as songwriters, there's a difference between musicians who play and then they write songs with it. It's different. It's like producers. You're different asked to do different things. But listening to them musically, until you get to the LSD era, I was never blown away. So what Bernard Purdie is saying, I believe 120%. And I believe it, because there's always been ghost playing in the industry, to tighten up stuff. But I always thought their syncopation and their music was pretty pedestrian, It wasn't like I was sitting there going, wow. Now, there are songs that I like, But there is obviously that Ringo Starr has always been seen the weak link. I heard George Johnson, the brothers Johnson say, I've heard others say it too. He got the coolest name, but ain't much to his musicality. And as far as George Harrison, like the satire, he was a strong writer. Wasn't necessarily big on his solo work. Got my mind set on you, usually gave me a headache. A lot of it's, traveling wheelbarrow, stuff like that. Like some of McCartney's solo stuff, some of Lennon's. McCartney's was more catchy. Nothing by Ringo Starr solo that I would say is memorable. But when you put the four parts together, it wasn't because of their musicianship that I like the writing. So I believe Bernard Purdie times 1,000. And I also believe that the powers that be wanted to take him out if he was to tell the truth. Because they had white faces across the ocean to sell back to Black America. Just like they did with Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones. Even though I love British pop music and what it represents, the ones that could play and what have you, but let's not get it twisted. They got all their stuff from black artistry. R&B, blues, jazz, funk, etc. It's in the music. And it's no hyperbole. So you better respect Bernard Purdie, because I believe him 100%. In that industry, and people ain't always like what you think. But I do know there was a lot of money to make them. And they again, great songwriting, but it wasn't because of the music. If I had to listen to the Beatles musically, I'd have told you that, yeah, Quincy Jones wasn't, understatement. They'd probably be in that one of the wackest bands, because I don't think their music is that as musicianship. That's one of the reasons why when Oasis was blown up in the 90s, I'm like, well, yeah, y'all using the wrong part of the Beatles. You use the lyrics, I'll give you that. And maybe use some codas, but to play like that, It's kind of sterile. All right, please hit like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments. When I do respond, thank you. Wash your hands, keep your mind clear, watch out for another. And does this change your opinion of the Beatles? I'm out.